Welcome. In this video, we're going to create our very first Server 2012 R2 standard 64-bit edition virtual machine for us to use as a learning environment. I'm going to use VMware Player's free edition to create that. So I've installed VMware Player and I'm simply going to click on Create a New Virtual Machine. If I have a disk, I can use an installer disk. In my case, I have a .iso file, which tends to install much faster. So I've chosen the location of my ISO file. If I want, I can just create a basic shell of the virtual machine and come back later when I have time to install the operating system. I'm going to choose Next, and normally I would put in the product key. I'm not going to do that on video, of course, so I'll just walk you through the rest of this screen, put it in, and come right back. In this case, it knows by the ISO that I want to install a Windows Server 2012, and I have Standard Edition. I'm going to give it a name, VMWare admin, and a password. And then I'll choose Next, but let me pause the video while I enter the key. Now that I've entered the key, I'll go ahead and name the virtual machine. In this case, I'll name it Windows Server 2012 R2, and then I always like to put the server name that I'm going to put on the server. The location of the files, which if you notice is going to go right to my Documents Virtual Machines and create a folder for this specific virtual machine. I'll choose Next. Now at this point, VMware has you do a split disk. Now the reason for this is primarily large files will not fit on older file allocation systems such as FAT32. In this case, I'll go ahead and store it on a single file. This is a non-production machine. I plan on putting it on a high-speed SSD drive, so I'm not real worried about it. And it will dynamically grow up to 60 gigs, which is more than I need. So I'll choose Next. It gives me a summary of what I'm after. I can choose Finished. And it'll go ahead and start the installation of the virtual machine. Now if you notice, I can go ahead and put other devices and attach them to the virtual machine, which I'll do later. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and I'll come back at key points in the installation. So as you can see, it's starting the installation. It'll go ahead and begin copying the files over to my virtual hard drive and do an installation as if I was actually sitting on a physical hardware, such as a server. So as you can see, we're still progressing rather nicely with it getting all the files it needs to complete the install. So it's done installing the files. It'll now install the features. Then, because it's set to NAT out to my internet connection, it'll install any updates, which you can see it's doing. It'll finish up and we'll be ready to configure our first virtual machine. Once it's done, it'll go ahead and restart and continue the process. We'll go ahead and restart it now. Here our machine is restarting, getting ready for the remaining requirements for installation. It's getting devices ready. Looks like they are ready. And getting ready for its initial boot. Once it completes, it'll go ahead and configure the initial user we gave it, VMadmin. Install a few tools that it needs for VMware. And the Windows tools that are associated with VMware as well. So here it's installing the VMware tools for Windows. Then we should be ready to go. It will remove any backup files and then finally restart so that we're ready to use our virtual machine. Once it restarts, we're ready to give VMware the Control-Alt-Delete. We'll enter the password and start up the machine. Whoops, let me try that password again. It helps when I remember what password I gave it. There we go. At this point, it'll bring up the server management tool by default. And then the first thing I like to do is servers are set not to check for updates. I like to go ahead and change that and do updates just so I know I have the most up-to-date machine that I'm ready to work with. Hopefully this helps, and we'll see you soon.